Our story begins with a lone figure standing on the rooftop of the school building, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape below. From this lofty vantage point, he reflects on his journey, convinced that he has done everything in his power to succeed. As he looks down, he watches students filtering into the building, and a sense of resignation washes over him. He feels he has tried his best, and now he's ready to bring things to a close. Just as he's about to take the leap, memories come flooding back. The bullying, the beatings, and the theft he endured. But instead of letting these painful recollections consume him, he stands tall with a newfound confidence. He reminds himself that none of it was his fault, and with a fierce determination, he refuses to let his life end in such a tragic way. Just as he's struggling to come to terms with his past, a sudden, eerie glow envelopes him. A system screen materializes before his eyes, displaying a cryptic message: synchronization of the world complete. Our protagonist's eyes widen in shock as he stares, transfixed, at the anomaly. The screen flickers and a new message appears. Hello, new world. Goodbye, old world. The message continues, its words unfolding like a destiny. With the reconstruction of the new world, your life will be evaluated. The system's announcement is followed by another revelation. The abilities you would have obtained in the future will now be implemented. The screen's words hang in the air, leaving our protagonist wondering what this means for his existence. Without warning, the city erupts into chaos. Explosions rock the streets, sending shockwaves through the air. The once familiar landscape is now a scene of utter devastation as buildings crumble. The protagonist's eyes widen in horror as he struggles to comprehend the sheer scale of the destruction unfolding before him. The scene shifts to a bustling school corridor where three male students are engaged in a casual conversation. One of them turns to his friend and asks, "Don't you think we're pushing him too far? I mean, the way we've been treating him. Isn't he going to snap soon?" The apparent leader of the group, a confident and nonchalant individual, shrugs off the concern with a dismissive remark. It doesn't matter. It's not like anyone actually cares about him. Just as the group's conversation is wrapping up, the same eerie system screen from earlier materializes in front of them, displaying the ominous message: your life will be evaluated. But this time, it's not just the protagonist who's affected. The screen seems to be appearing to everyone around the school, leaving students and faculty alike in a state of confusion and alarm. The group's leader, who had been so nonchalant just moments before, now looks taken aback, his eyes fixed on the screen with a mix of fear and uncertainty. That day, the world as they knew it was transformed forever. The reconstruction of reality brought about a cataclysmic shift, and monsters began to emerge out of nowhere, wreaking havoc and spreading chaos. Amidst the mayhem, humanity was bestowed with an unexpected gift: skills. These abilities, once unimaginable, now manifested in people's lives, granting them extraordinary powers to adapt, survive, and potentially thrive in this new, treacherous world. The skills bestowed upon humanity were not random, but rather, they were intricately linked to each individual's personality and traits. The unique characteristics, values, and experiences that defined a person now manifested as extraordinary abilities tailored to their distinct profile. However, on the other side, there were people who failed to obtain anything. With the sudden influx of power and fear, rationality was too fragile. The moral and order that were built over centuries all collapse in an instant. In a shocking turn of events, a voice pierced the air, addressing the group's leader as Takashi. The speaker's words were laced with accusation and venom, as they revealed a horrific truth. Takashi had mercilessly slaughtered his own friend, who had been held captive by goblins. The teacher's eyes narrowed as they posed a scathing question. "Takashi, are you still bullying the weak?" Takashi sneered, his voice dripping with disdain, as he addressed the teacher. "What's your problem, Shimada-sensei?" He took a step forward, his eyes flashing with challenge, and continued, "It's not like you can reprimand me anymore." The teacher, with a twisted smile on his face, said he'd doubt if there is any point in trying to educate him. Shimada-sensei and Takashi locked eyes in a fierce stare down, the air thick with tension. Monsters closed in, their twisted forms shuffling, growling, and scuttling closer. Yet, neither flinched, their gazes fixed on each other as the darkness deepened around them. The scene shifts to the rooftop where our protagonist is hanging by the edge. With a Herculean effort, he summoned his last reserves of strength, his arm trembling as he pulled himself up, inch by agonizing inch. Finally, he collapsed onto the rooftop, gasping for air, his hands still clenched around the edge as if it was a lifeline. The system screen flashed a triumphant confirmation: skill unyielding and skill revenge, implementation complete. The message is followed by another one saying, evaluated value has met the required value. The merging of unyielding and revenger will be implemented. A new screen appears with the message, skill, the unyielding revenge, has been created. Its continue with the evaluation has been completed. The implementation program will be terminated. As the code dissipated, a lone message remained, etched on the screen like a digital epitaph, glory to your life. As he lay on the floor, our protagonist had an epiphany. He realized that he didn't want to die, and with that came a newfound understanding. He no longer cared about the whispers, the gossip, or the judgments of others. He was done living for the validation of those around him. From this moment on, he vowed to live for himself. As he rose to his feet, the protagonist's gaze lingered on the blue screen, his mind racing with questions. "What is this screen?" he asked himself aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is this some kind of video game? A simulation?" On his static window, he tabbed the skill, Unyielding Revenge, and another window pop up. The Unyielding Revenger. Origin skill, the Unyielding, will be activated upon taking fatal damage. You will live as long as you do not give up. The effect will end once you have recovered from the fatal damage. The revenge gauge will be visible at all times. When the gauge is filled, the time for revenge will be activated. That you will rank up and all wounds as well as debuffs will be cleansed and healed. That you will temporarily significantly surpass the stats of the targeted being and acquire the superior version of the skill, S, that the target possesses. In this state, your stats will never be lowered. The effect will be disabled after the time limit, and you will permanently receive the stat bonus and high-ranking skill from the rank-up effect. When the gauge is filled, the time for revenge will be activated. You will rank up and all wounds as well as debuffs will be cleansed and healed. Our protagonist thinks it's a useless skill. As the protagonist gazed at the statistic window, his mind still reeling with doubts about the usefulness of his new skills, the door to the rooftop burst open. Takashi stumbled in, his eyes wide with fear, his face slick with sweat. He looked like he had been running for his life. He kept looking over his shoulder, as if he expected something to be following him. Just as Takashi's panicked gaze met the protagonist's, the gauge screen flickered to life, its numbers ticking upward with an ominous slowness. Suddenly, Teacher Shimada emerged onto the rooftop, his eyes fixed intently on Takashi. The protagonist's instinct screamed warning as Shimada's expression twisted into a sinister grin. "You can't escape me, Takashi," he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. Shimada-sensei raised one hand to the sky, his palm open and fingers splayed. Takashi's eyes widened in horror as he stumbled backward, turned, and desperately tried to flee, but his escape was cut short as a dark spear materialized in Shimada's hand. It shot forth, striking Takashi in the back. Takashi screamed, his body convulsing in agony. He crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Shimada's eyes gleamed with maniacal intensity as he burst into a fit of unhinged laughter. The protagonist reeled in shock, his mind racing with the question, "What's happening?" With his gauge still climbing, he knew he had to make a stealthy getaway. Shimada-sensei looked down at Takashi's body with a scornful smirk and said, "One more piece of trash taken care of." Shimada-sensei approached Takashi's lifeless body, his eyes fixed on it with an unnerving intensity. Seizing the distraction, the protagonist knew it was his chance to make a run for it. The protagonist's shock gave way to adrenaline as he turned to flee, dashing towards the door with a surge of terror-fueled speed. Shimada-sensei's eyes snapped towards him, a hint of surprise followed by a sly tone. "Ah, it's you, Kai," he said, his voice dripping with malice. Kai sprinted towards the door, but his escape was thwarted when Shimada-sensei raised his hand, summoning a crimson mist that descended from above. "Do you have a dog to greet your teachers, Kai?" Shimada's voice dripped with sadistic intent as the red mist coalesced into a dark, menacing spear. Shimada-sensei's grin grew wider as he hurled the dark spell, Cursed Death. The black spear shot towards Kai with unerring precision, but fate intervened, and the attack missed by a hair's breadth, slamming into the wall behind him with a deafening crash. Kai reached the stairway, but was met with a gruesome sight. Corpses littered the stairs, victims of Shimada-sensei's brutality. Kai fled in a frantic dash, with Shimada-sensei hot on his heels, stalking him like a cat chasing a terrified mouse. Meanwhile, the gauge had surged to 54%, its ominous progress mirroring the escalating danger that pursued Kai. Shimada-sensei unleashed another Cursed Death assault, but this time, instead of a single large spear, a hail of smaller, deadly projectiles rained down on Kai. The smaller projectiles struck Kai multiple times, each hit landing with precision and malice, sending him stumbling backward as the gauge continued its relentless climb. Shimada-sensei's mocking tone sent chills down Kai's spine. "Oh dear, what a reckless student." As he raised his hand, Kai knew he had to escape. Now, Kai sprinted with every ounce of speed he possessed, his legs pumping furiously as he desperately sought to outrun Shimada-sensei's next attack. Shimada-sensei's maniacal laughter echoed through the air as he hurled the death-cursed spear at Kai. The death-cursed spear pierced Kai's stomach with a sickening thud. The spear's impact sent the gauge skyrocketing to 90%, its ominous needle quivering ominously as Kai's life force began to ebb away. A system notification appears saying, "Unyielding has been activated. You will live as long as you do not give up." In a cruel twist of fate, Kai thought to himself, "Just when I found the will to live, this is what happens." He remembered when Sensei said he was part of the problem for the bullying, while Kai kept saying he didn't do anything. And Sensei taught it is because of him that his evaluation as a teacher has been lowered. Shimada-sensei looked down at Kai, who was crawling on the ground in agony, and taunted him, "Just die already." A system notification popped up saying, "Unyielding has been activated. You will live as long as you don't give up." Shimada-sensei conjured his mist once more, enveloping the area in a thick, eerie fog. The system window popped up again, displaying a new message. "Unyielding has exceeded 90%. Please designate a new target." Another message followed. "Only one target detected. Shimada Kenichi has been automatically designated as the target." Shimada turned to face Kai, sat on top of him, and raised his dark spear to deliver the final blow. "Just die already," he taunted him. Kai asked, "Why me? Why do you hate me so much?" He began to cry, protesting that he had never done anything to deserve such treatment. The gauge, still rising, reached 96%. Shimada gazed at Kai with a cold expression and said, "Why do you even care about the reason right now?" Upon hearing Shimada's response, Kai's eyes glowed red as the gauge continued to rise. A voice in his head began whispering to him that he knew, everyone knew, and yet they chose him as a sacrifice. Still sitting on top of Kai, Shimada-sensei raised his dark spear for the killing strike. With this last straw, the gauge finally reached 100%. It is followed by a system notification saying the time for revenge is here, signaling a critical point, unleashing a fierce energy. Kai's body surged with energy, blasting Shimada-sensei off him and sending him crashing across the room. Kai stood up, his body crackling with crimson energy, his eyes blazing with a fierce red light, transformed by the intense power now coursing through him.